I paid for the entire vacation to Disney World, every single ticket, every hotel night, every meal. Then my wife sent me a text that made my hands shake. Brian wants to come instead. The kids need their real dad. You don't have to go anymore. After 4 years of being the only dad those kids ever really knew, I was being replaced like an old pair of shoes. But what I did next? Nobody saw it coming. And it changed everything. Before we continue with this story, I need you to do something. Hit that subscribe button right now because what happens next will absolutely blow your mind. Smash that like button and drop a comment below telling me where you're watching from, New York, Miami, or Seattle? Your support means everything and helps us bring you more amazing stories like this one. Now, let's dive into what happened when I decided I wasn't going to be a doormat anymore. The Texas sun was beating down hard on the parking lot where I was working. My name is Daniel Carter, and I'm a plumber. I fix broken pipes, install water heaters, and make sure people have clean water in their homes. It's honest work, and I'm good at it. I was under a sink in a big office building in Austin, Texas, tightening some pipes with my wrench. Sweat was dripping down my face even though the air conditioning was on. I was working extra hard because tomorrow was supposed to be my last day of work before our big family trip to Orlando, Florida. We were going to Disney World, and I had been planning this trip for 6 whole months. I had promised my stepdaughter, Lily, that we'd ride Space Mountain together. She was 8 years old and had been talking about nothing else for weeks. My stepson, Noah, who was 10, wanted to see Star Wars Galaxy's Edge more than anything in the world. I had saved up money from working extra hours, staying late, and even working on weekends. The trip cost me almost $5,000. That's enough money to buy a really nice used car. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I thought it might be my wife, Jennifer, asking me to pick up milk on the way home. Or maybe Noah's coach reminding me about soccer practice. I pulled out my phone with my dirty hands and looked at the screen. What I saw made me feel like someone had punched me in the stomach. The text message was from Jennifer. It said, "Brian wants to come on the Disney trip. The kids need time with their real dad. You don't have to come anymore. We'll handle everything." I read it once. Then twice. Then 3 times. Each time I read it, I felt worse. Brian. That was the name of Jennifer's ex-husband. The biological father of Lily and Noah. The man who had barely seen his kids in 4 years. The man who forgot their birthdays. The man who promised to take them to the zoo and never showed up. That Brian. And Jennifer was calling him their real dad. For 4 years I had been the one who woke up in the middle of the night when Noah had bad dreams. I was the one who taught Lily how to tie her shoes. I was the one who helped Noah with his math homework even though fractions made my head hurt. I went to every parent-teacher meeting. I cheered at every soccer game. I sat through every school play, even when the kids forgot their lines. Brian? He sent child support money sometimes, when he remembered. He made promises he never kept. He was like a ghost. You heard about him, but you almost never saw him. My hands started shaking. The wrench I was holding felt too heavy. The other plumbers working near me kept doing their jobs, talking and laughing, but I couldn't hear them anymore. All I could hear was my heart beating really fast in my ears. I thought about all those tickets I bought. The special fast passes so we wouldn't have to wait in long lines. The character breakfast I reserved where the kids could meet Mickey Mouse and eat pancakes shaped like mouse ears. The hotel rooms with a view of the castle. I had picked out everything so carefully, reading reviews online late at night to make sure everything would be perfect. And now Jennifer was just erasing me. Like I was a mistake she could delete. I walked away from the sink I was fixing. My boss called my name, but I didn't stop. I went outside to my work truck and sat in the driver's seat. The truck was old and the air conditioning didn't work great, but I just sat there, staring at my phone. Part of me wanted to call Jennifer right away and yell. But another part of me was scared. What if she really meant it? What if she really thought Brian was more important than me just because he was the biological father? I had always worried about this, deep down. When you're a step-parent, there's always this little voice in your head asking, what if they decide you're not the real parent? What if biology matters more than love? I sat in that hot truck for what felt like hours but was probably only 15 minutes. Construction workers walked by. Cars drove past. Life kept going like normal for everyone else. But for me, everything had changed. My reflection in the rearview mirror showed a man I barely recognized. My eyes looked hurt and confused. My jaw was tight. I had always thought of myself as the kind of person who stayed calm and fixed problems. That's what plumbers do. We fix things that are broken. But how do you fix a family that doesn't want you anymore? I finally pressed the button to call Jennifer. My finger was shaking so bad I almost pressed the wrong contact. The phone rang once. Twice. 3 times. Part of me hoped she wouldn't answer. Then I could pretend this wasn't really happening. But on the 4th ring, she picked up. Hey, Daniel! What's up? Her voice sounded so normal and happy, like she had just told me something simple like what we were having for dinner, not that she was replacing me with her ex-husband. I gripped the steering wheel with my free hand so tight my knuckles turned white. I tried to keep my voice calm and steady, but it was hard. Jennifer, we need to talk about that text message you sent me, I said. Each word felt like it hurt to say out loud. You're telling me that Brian is going on the trip that I planned and paid for, and I'm not invited anymore? There was silence on the other end of the phone. I could hear the TV playing in the background. It sounded like one of those afternoon talk shows. I could also hear dishes clinking in the kitchen. Normal house sounds. But nothing felt normal to me anymore. Jennifer let out a big sigh. It was the kind of sigh people make when they think you're being difficult about something simple. Look, Daniel, I know this seems sudden, she said. Her voice had changed. Now she was talking to me like I was a little kid who didn't understand something obvious. But Brian has really changed. He's been doing better lately. He's been asking about the kids more, wanting to be involved in their lives. When he heard about the Disney trip, he thought it would be perfect for him to reconnect with Lily and Noah. You have to understand, kids need their biological father in their lives. The way she said it so casually, like she was just rearranging furniture instead of ripping apart our family, made me feel angry in a way I had never felt before. Memories started flooding into my mind like a river breaking through a dam. I remembered Lily's first day of first grade. She had been so scared she held onto my leg and wouldn't let go. She cried and said she didn't want me to leave. I had to promise I would be the one to pick her up after school. When I came to get her that afternoon, she ran to me with the biggest smile and showed me the picture she had drawn. It was of our family, me, her, Jennifer, and Noah. She had written, "My family," at the top in wobbly letters. I remembered when Noah fell off his bike last summer and scraped his knees really badly. There was blood and he was crying so hard. He didn't reach for his mom. He reached for me. I was the one who carried him to the car. I was the one who held his hand while the doctor put stitches in his knee. I was the one who stayed home from work the next day to take care of him. I remembered all the parent-teacher conferences where his teacher, Mrs. Johnson, told me how much Noah's reading had improved. Or when Lily's art teacher hung up her painting of a sunset and said she had real talent. I had been so proud, sitting in those tiny chairs made for kids, listening to teachers tell me good things about the children I loved. Where was this, real dad, during all of that? Where was Brian when Noah had pneumonia last winter? My voice got louder even though I was trying to stay calm. I was the one who took 3 days off work to sit in the hospital room with him. I was the one who read him stories when he couldn't sleep. I was the one checking his oxygen levels every hour. Where was Brian when Lily needed help with her science fair project? Or when the other kids at school made fun of her glasses and she came home crying? Each memory felt like proof in a court case. Proof that I was a real dad, no matter what biology said. Jennifer's voice got sharp and defensive. The patient tone disappeared. That's exactly the problem, Daniel, she said, and I could tell she was getting angry now. You act like taking care of my children is some huge favor you're doing for me. Like you deserve a trophy for being a decent stepfather. Brian is trying to make up for his mistakes. He wants to be better. And instead of supporting what's best for Lily and Noah, you're making this all about yourself and your hurt feelings." Her words hit me like a slap across the face. Selfish? Me? For 4 years, I had given up so many things. I used to love going fishing on weekends, but I gave that up to go to Noah's baseball games. I used to take vacation days to relax, but instead I used them for school events and field trips. I bought Lily new dance shoes instead of the new fishing rod I wanted. I paid for Noah's soccer league instead of fixing my truck's air conditioning. I never asked for a thank you. I never kept a list of all the things I did. I did them because I loved those kids. Because that's what parents do. But now Jennifer was calling me selfish for being hurt that none of it mattered. "Jennifer," I said, and my voice got very quiet because I was feeling so many emotions I could barely talk. "I have been their father in every way that counts for 4 years. I've loved those kids like they were my own blood. I've supported them through everything, good times and bad times. I built my whole life around being someone they could count on. And now you're telling me that none of that matters because their sperm donor decided he wants to play dad for a week in Florida?" Silence. Long, terrible silence. It felt like the whole world was holding its breath. When Jennifer finally spoke again, her voice was cold. Colder than I had ever heard it. "Brian has been clean and sober for 6 months now, Daniel. He has a steady job. He's paying child support regularly. He wants to be part of their lives. I won't stand in the way of my children having a relationship with their real father just because it hurts your feelings." The way she said, "real father," felt mean. Like she was trying to remind me that I would never really be their dad, no matter what I did. I sat there in my hot truck, watching other workers walk around the construction site. Their lives were going on normally. Nobody knew that my whole world was falling apart. I understood that kids should know their biological parents, when possible. That made sense in my brain. But my heart felt like it was breaking into a million pieces. All those bedtime stories I read. All those homework sessions at the kitchen table. All those proud moments taking pictures at school events. Did they all mean nothing? "I need time to think about this, Jennifer," I said. My voice sounded like a robot, flat and emotionless. "We'll talk more when I get home tonight." I hung up before she could say anything else. I couldn't trust myself to keep talking without saying something I might regret forever. The phone felt hot in my hand. I put it carefully on the passenger seat, like it might explode if I moved it too fast. I started my truck and drove slowly away from the construction site. My boss would probably be mad that I left early, but I didn't care. I drove through the streets of Austin, past familiar buildings and restaurants, but everything looked different now. Like I was seeing it all for the first time. Something had broken during that phone call. Something important. The foundation of my family had cracked, and I knew that nothing would ever be the same again. As I drove toward the house I had been calling home for 4 years, I realized something important. I had a choice to make. I could go back and pretend everything was fine, keep being the person who paid for everything and got treated like I didn't matter. Or I could stand up for myself for the first time in a long time. The truck's engine rumbled beneath me as I drove. And with each mile, I felt something changing inside me. The hurt was still there. But underneath it, something else was growing. Determination. I pulled into the driveway of our house in Austin. It was a nice 3-bedroom house with a small yard. I had mowed that lawn every single weekend for 4 years. I had planted those flowers by the front door for Jennifer's birthday last year. I had painted the fence. I had fixed the leaky roof. I had replaced the old mailbox with a new one. Every improvement I made to this house had felt like I was investing in our future together. But now, looking at it, all I could see was how much of myself I had given to a family that was now telling me I wasn't really part of it. I walked through the front door. Lily's pink backpack was on the floor by the stairs. Noah's muddy soccer cleats were by the door. I had reminded him 100 times to put them in the garage, but he always forgot. Jennifer's work bag from the dental office where she worked was on the kitchen table. Normal family mess. But it didn't feel like my family anymore. I went to the small office we had set up in the spare bedroom. This was where I did paperwork for my plumbing jobs and where I kept our family computer. I sat down and opened up our bank account on the computer. What I saw made me feel sick to my stomach, but also angry. I started looking at where all our money went each month. The numbers told a story I had been ignoring for a long time. The mortgage payment for our house. I paid 80% of it from my paycheck. The car insurance? Mine. The electric bill, water bill, and internet? Mine. Groceries? Mine. Lily's dance classes that cost $150 a month? Mine. Noah's soccer league fees? Mine. Jennifer worked as a dental hygienist and made decent money. But when I looked at where her money went, it disappeared into things like shopping, girls' night out, and personal expenses. She bought herself new clothes and went to fancy restaurants with her friends, while I was eating sandwiches for lunch to save money. The Disney World trip had cost me $4,700. I had put it on 3 different credit cards because I didn't have all the money at once. I had worked extra hours, taken side jobs on weekends, and said no to things I wanted so I could afford to make this trip special for the kids. And now I was being told I couldn't even go. I picked up my phone and called the credit card company. My hands were steady now. I knew what I needed to do. I need to report my cards as lost and cancel all the extra cards on my account, I told the nice lady on the phone. In less than 30 minutes, Jennifer's access to our credit cards was completely cut off. She only had her own credit cards now, and whatever cash she had in her purse. Next, I logged into our joint bank account, the account where both our paychecks went. I transferred most of the money into my personal savings account that only I could access. I left exactly enough money to pay for 1 month of mortgage and bills. That was fair. It gave Jennifer time to figure things out, but I wasn't going to keep paying for everything while being treated like I didn't matter. Then I called my boss at Thompson Plumbing, the company I worked for. His name was Mr. Rodriguez, and he'd been really good to me over the years. Mr. Rodriguez, I need to take some time off. It's a family emergency, I said. Take all the time you need, Daniel, he said. He was a good man and didn't ask a lot of questions. Your job will be here when you're ready to come back. My next phone call was to a lawyer. A guy I worked with had gotten divorced last year, and he had recommended his lawyer to me once when we were talking. I never thought I'd need it, but I had kept the number just in case. The lawyer's secretary answered and set up an appointment for me the next morning. She explained that the first meeting was just to talk about my rights and options. I didn't have to make any big decisions right away. That made me feel a little better. I started packing my clothes into 2 big suitcases. My work uniforms, my jeans, my t-shirts, my shoes. Everything I owned fit into 2 suitcases and a few boxes. It was strange to realize how little of this house was actually mine. All my plumbing tools went into plastic containers. Those tools were expensive, and I needed them for work. They were coming with me. The hardest part was the pictures. Our house was full of family photos. Pictures of all 4 of us at the beach. Photos from Lily's dance recitals. Pictures of Noah's baseball team with me standing in the back row as an assistant coach. Halloween photos where we all dressed up in costumes. In every single one of those pictures, I looked happy. Like I belonged. Like I was part of something real. Were those memories even real? Or had I been fooling myself this whole time? I heard Jennifer's car pull into the driveway. My heart started beating faster. The front door opened and I heard her footsteps walking through the house. Daniel? She called out. Are you home? She appeared in the bedroom doorway and stopped dead when she saw my suitcases on the bed and my dresser drawers pulled open. Daniel, what are you doing? Her voice had that tone of controlled panic. Like when something is going really wrong but you're trying to stay calm. I know you're upset about the Disney thing, but this is crazy. You're completely overreacting to a simple scheduling conflict. A scheduling conflict. That's what she was calling it. Like it was no big deal. I kept folding my shirts very carefully and putting them in the suitcase. I didn't look at her because I was afraid I might start yelling. I'm giving you and Brian the space you need to be a family without me getting in the way, I said quietly. Since you don't need me as a stepfather anymore, I'm removing myself from the situation. Jennifer's eyes got wide. She stepped into the room like she was approaching a dangerous animal. But Daniel, you can't just leave. What about the kids? What about our bills? You're being completely unreasonable. Am I? I finally looked at her. You told me I wasn't needed anymore, Jennifer. You told me Brian is their real dad. So I'm doing what you asked? I'm stepping aside. That's not what I meant, and you know it. Her voice was getting higher and louder. I just meant for the trip. I never said you had to leave. Didn't you? I zipped up one suitcase. You've made it very clear that biology is more important than the 4 years I've spent being a father to those kids. So why should I stay? Why should I keep paying for everything when I'm just a replacement that can be swapped out whenever Brian decides he wants to play dad for a while? I carried my suitcases out to my truck. It was getting dark outside. Jennifer followed me, arguing and trying to explain, but I wasn't listening anymore. The man who had spent 4 years making everyone else happy had finally reached his breaking point. And honestly, walking away felt better than I had expected. I loaded the last box into my truck and drove away from the only home I had known as a married man. In my rearview mirror, I could see Jennifer standing in the driveway, her phone already out, probably calling someone. I checked into a hotel that night. It was a cheap place, nothing fancy, but it was clean and quiet. I sat on the bed and turned on my phone. 47 missed calls. 32 text messages. Jennifer had been calling nonstop since midnight. I listened to a few of her voicemails. The first ones were angry. The later ones were panicked. Daniel, where are you? You need to come home right now. The credit cards aren't working. What did you do? Daniel, this is insane. You can't just take all the money. Emma won't stop crying. She wants to know where you are. That last one made my chest hurt. I hated that the kids were upset. But I also knew that if I went back now, nothing would change. I'd still be the guy who paid for everything but didn't really matter. The next morning, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. Listen here, buddy, a man's voice said. It was aggressive and mean. You need to get back to that house and fix this mess. Sarah told me about your little tantrum. Those kids need stability, not some jealous stepdad acting like a baby because he didn't get his way. Brian. It had to be. Let me get this straight, I said, staying calm even though I was angry. You abandoned your kids for 4 years. You barely paid child support. You broke promise after promise. And now you're calling me to lecture me about responsibility? I hung up on him. Later that morning, I met with the lawyer. Her name was Mrs. Williams, and she was very professional and kind. Okay, Daniel, let me explain your situation, she said, looking at the notes I had brought. Because you never legally adopted Lily and Noah, you have no legal obligations to support them. You also have no legal rights to see them. The house and shared property would be divided according to Texas law, but your personal money and anything you owned before the marriage stays yours. That made sense. Then she told me something I didn't know. I did a quick background check on Brian like you asked, she said. Did you know he was in prison until 2 months ago? My blood ran cold. What? He was in state prison for check fraud. He was there for 1.5 years. He got out 8 weeks ago. So that's why Brian suddenly wanted to be involved. He needed a place to stay. He needed money. And Sarah had been willing to throw me away to help her ex-husband who had just gotten out of prison. I felt sick. That afternoon my phone rang. It was a number I recognized. Lily. I answered. Daddy Daniel? Her little voice was shaking and she sounded like she had been crying. I don't understand why you left without saying goodbye. Mommy says you're mad at her, but I thought you were mad at me too. Did I do something bad? I promise I'll be better if you come home. I miss reading bedtime stories with you. My eyes filled with tears. This wasn't her fault. None of this was her fault. Sweetheart, you didn't do anything wrong, I said gently. I'm not mad at you at all. I love you very much. Sometimes grown-ups have problems that have nothing to do with kids. Do you understand? But are you coming back? She asked. I don't know yet, honey, I said honestly. But even if I don't live at the house anymore, I still care about you very much. After we hung up, I sat there feeling terrible. Then Noah called. Daniel, Mom says you might not come to Disney World with us, he said. He sounded confused and a little angry. But that doesn't make sense because you're the one who bought all the tickets. She keeps crying and talking to Brian about money. And Lily won't stop asking when you're coming home. I told my friends at school that my dad was taking us on vacation, and now I don't know what to tell them. He called me his dad. Even though he used my first name, he still thought of me as his dad. Noah, I need you to be brave right now, I said. Things are going to be different for a while. But I promise I will always care about you and your sister, okay? Okay, he said quietly. That evening, Jennifer's mother called me. Mrs. Patterson had never really liked me much, and now she was calling to yell at me. Daniel Carter, you should be ashamed of yourself, she said. Those children depend on you. You can't just abandon them because you and Jennifer are having problems. What kind of man walks away from kids who love him just because their mother hurt his feelings? With all due respect, Mrs. Patterson, I said, Jennifer made it very clear that I'm not their real father. So maybe you should be having this conversation with Brian, their real dad who just got out of prison 2 months ago. She was silent for a moment. Prison? Yes, ma'am. Ask your daughter about it. I hung up. My phone kept ringing all day and into the night. Friends of Jennifer's. Her sister. Her cousin. People I barely knew were calling to tell me I was a terrible person for leaving. But here's what nobody understood. I didn't leave because I stopped caring. I left because I finally started caring about myself. The breaking point came when I saw that Brian had left me a voicemail from Jennifer's phone. Look, man, his voice said, trying to sound reasonable now instead of angry. I can see from the bank statements that you've been carrying this family financially. I appreciate what you've done for my kids. But it's time for me to step up and take care of my own family now. Jennifer doesn't need 2 men competing for the same role. So maybe it's best if you just move on and find your own life. He was living in MY house. With MY family. Spending MY money. And telling me to move on. I turned off my phone and sat in the dark hotel room. Tomorrow, I would need to decide if I was going to keep fighting for a family that seemed to want to replace me, or if I was going to accept that my chapter in their story was over. For the first time in 4 years, I was putting myself first. And as scary as that was, it also felt like I could finally breathe again. 3 weeks later, I found a small apartment in downtown Austin. It wasn't fancy, but it was mine. Just mine. Nobody could tell me I didn't belong there. I bought a bed, a couch, a TV, and a small table. That was all I needed. The walls were empty at first, but that was okay. I was starting fresh. Work became my focus. Mr. Rodriguez gave me more responsibility at Thompson Plumbing. I started leading teams and helping plan big projects. I worked hard, sometimes 12 hours a day, and all the overtime money went into my savings account. For the first time in years, I could see my bank account growing instead of shrinking. I also signed up for night classes at the community college. Business management and advanced plumbing courses. I had always dreamed of starting my own plumbing company someday, but I never had the time or money. Now I had both. My teacher, Professor Martinez, was really inspiring. She said something I'll never forget. The biggest mistake people make is waiting for permission to chase their dreams. Success comes to people who bet on themselves when nobody else will. I met a guy named Tony at the hardware store. We started talking about plumbing stuff and ended up getting coffee. Turns out Tony was also an electrician who had recently left a bad marriage. We became friends fast because we understood each other. I spent 7 years thinking I was being noble by staying in a marriage where I was valued for my paycheck, not my presence, Tony told me over coffee one day. Leaving felt like failure until I realized that staying was the real failure. Tony and I started meeting for breakfast before work. We talked about business ideas, about dealing with guilt over kids, about rebuilding our lives. It helped so much to have a friend who understood. My new apartment had a small balcony. I'd sit out there in the mornings with my coffee, watching the city wake up. Joggers ran by. People walked their dogs. The world was full of people living happy lives without the exact family situation I thought I needed. I still talked to Lily and Noah on the phone twice a week. We had worked out a schedule through the lawyer. The conversations were shorter now, but they felt more real. Lily told me about school and her friends. Noah told me about soccer and a new video game he liked. They had adjusted better than I expected. Kids are resilient like that. Daniel, can I ask you something? Noah said during one call. Of course, buddy. Is Brian going to be our new dad now? I thought carefully before answering. Brian is your biological father, and it's good for you to know him. But being a dad isn't just about biology. It's about who shows up, who cares, who's there when you need them. Do you understand? Yeah, he said. I think so. No matter what happens, I'll always care about you and your sister. That won't change. Okay. Thanks, Daniel. Jennifer had started calling too, but her tone had changed. She wasn't angry anymore. Now she sounded worried and sad. Daniel, I made a mistake, she said in one voicemail. Brian isn't what I thought he was. He's not helping with bills. He's not even being a good dad to the kids. I was wrong. Can we talk about maybe trying again? But I didn't call her back. Because here's what I realized. She wasn't sorry she hurt me. She was sorry she lost my money. For months after I left, I applied for my contractor's license. I passed the test on my first try. I officially started my own business, Carter Plumbing Solutions. I got business cards printed. I bought magnetic signs for my truck. I got my first client through a referral from Professor Martinez. My life wasn't perfect. Some days I still felt sad about Lily and Noah. Some days I missed the feeling of being part of a family. But I also felt something I hadn't felt in years, proud of myself. I was building something that was truly mine. A business. A future. A life where I mattered because of who I was, not just what I could pay for. One evening at my business class, I met a woman named Angela. She was starting her own marketing business after years of working for a big company that didn't appreciate her. We started talking after class and realized we had a lot in common. I spent so long making myself smaller so other people could feel bigger, Angela said. It took me forever to realize that wasn't love. That was just disappearing. We got coffee. Then dinner. Then more dinners. Angela laughed easily and often. She asked me about my dreams and actually listened to the answers. She didn't see me as a wallet or a problem solver. She saw me as a person. It felt really nice. Meanwhile, Jennifer's calls became more desperate. Daniel, I need help. Brian left last week and he took money from my purse. The kids are asking about you constantly. I can't afford the mortgage by myself. Please, can we just talk? Part of me felt bad for her. But a bigger part of me knew that going back would be a huge mistake. She hadn't loved me. She had loved what I provided. And the moment someone else looked better, she had thrown me away. I wasn't going to volunteer to be thrown away again. 6 months after I left that house in the suburbs, my business was growing. I had hired 2 employees. I had steady clients. I had money in the bank for the first time in my adult life. I was seeing Angela regularly now, and it felt healthy and good. She celebrated my successes instead of taking them for granted. She had her own money and her own dreams. We were partners, not a provider and a dependent. Lily and Noah came to visit my apartment one Saturday. Jennifer had finally agreed to let me see them. We went to the park, got ice cream, and played mini golf. "Your apartment is cool," Lily said. "It's smaller than our house, but it feels cozy." "I like it here," Noah said. "Can we come back next weekend?" "Absolutely," I said, smiling. As I watched them eat their ice cream, I realized something important. I could still be a positive person in their lives without sacrificing my own happiness. I could love them and have boundaries. I could care about them and still put myself first sometimes. That evening, I sat on my balcony with a cup of coffee, watching the sunset paint the Austin sky in shades of orange and pink. My phone buzzed. It was Angela, sending me a funny picture of her cat. I smiled and texted back. My life looked nothing like I had planned 4 years ago. But you know what? It was better. Because this life was mine. Built by me, for me, on my terms. And for the first time in a very long time, I felt genuinely happy. The end. If this story touched your heart, please hit that like button and subscribe for more incredible true stories. Drop a comment below telling us what you would have done in Daniel's situation. Would you have stayed or left? Your engagement helps us continue bringing you powerful stories like this one. Thank you for watching, and remember, you teach people how to treat you. Never forget your worth.